and welcome to WWE Questions You Most Want Answered. I'm Adam Wilbourn from What Culture, joined by Adam Clery and Adam Nicholas from What Culture, to answer all the questions you want answered, basically. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts where we review Raw, SmackDown, the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT, pay-per-views, we have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a round of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on wrestle culture. But as I said, joined by Adam Clery and Adam Nicholas to answer all the questions you want answered. So I should start by saying, if you want any questions answered, please feel free to stick them in the comment section down below, and we'll get through as many as we can in the next half an hour or so. But I probably should start off by the question that's, well, started us all off today, and that surrounds Nia Jax. Nia Jax, of course, botching a buckle bomb against Clery Sane on Monday Night Raw last night. And I suppose the conversation started up again. Adam Clery, do you think Nia Jax is unsafe or a dangerous worker?
Yes. The thing is, when I saw that video doing the rounds, I'll take these off. When I saw that video doing the rounds this morning, I watched it back and I thought, you know what it is? People are really getting on her for this because, she's just come back and there's this narrative surrounding her saying she's not particularly safe. But that, to me, I think she just drops her and she just catches herself on the turnbuckle. It's not actually that bad at all. And I watched it back and I slowed it down. I was like, oh, no, she's hit her head on the second one on the way down. That's absolutely dreadful. I remember when this first happened and there was all this talk. I think it was around Seth Rollins being unsafe, and people started bringing up Nia statistics about how something like people were getting injured in every 200 Seth matches. People were getting injured in every 30 Nia matches. The actual sort of things that have happened, she's been with her aren't entirely her fault. But I will say, I don't quite think she's as unsafe as people paint her, but I don't think she particularly helps herself with the way she works either.
Nicholas, what did you think when you first saw this? Because, I was one of many to lay into her before she left to have double ACL surgery, which is, major surgery, and wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt when she came back. But, I mean, it looks like she's just sort of returned to her ways. Clery Sane is a woman who's only just got over a concussion, 4 months ago as well? It doesn't look good.
No, it's not great. It's the timing, if anything else, because Nia Jax is obviously just coming back, which you'd kind of hope this could have been a fresh slate. And it would be maybe unfair, I guess, to just immediately dive in and say, oh my God, she's back to her old ways kind of thing. Because she might be just a little bit rusty from being in the ring. I know I'm trying to come up with slight positives here. But in terms of Clery Sane, though, as you say, she's only just come back from a concussion. Stuff like this is not great. Look, it's one of those situations where if it was just a one-off thing, people would be like, oh, that's a shame that happened, but okay, let's move on. A bit like when Brie Bella knocked out Liv Morgan with the kicks and stuff. It was an isolated incident, or there was a couple of instances close together, and it wasn't ideal. Nia, unfortunately, is going to get a lot of people jumping on her because of the history, because of all that, and mostly because you'd kind of hope that she would have gone away, and in the time she'd been away, although I realise she was injured, maybe have improved slightly and be more conscious of these sorts of things. And it seems maybe not.
Just to follow that up, we've got a question here from 619YZ, who says, does the size of Nia compared to the rest of the women's division contribute to people getting injured more, or is it just down to ring work? What do you reckon, Nicholas?
You're going to have to repeat that. I missed the start bit there.
Well, does the size of her, because I sort of alluded to this in the news. I said that surely she shouldn't be botching a buckle bomb on Clery Sane because she's more lithe and presumably easier to chuck around. But is it Nia not realising her own strength almost?
Possibly. I'm sure there's been no secret about her being one of the strongest in the women's division in terms of when they do the combine stuff and they do it at the PC. She's always got quite a few of the records, I think, from when she used to previously before the new batch came in. I wonder if maybe it's just a little bit of not knowing her own strength, but really I think it's more, I feel like they're asking her to work a style where because she's bigger, they want her to be this powerhouse and they want her to work these moves that look aggressive. I feel like she wouldn't continue in that fashion if she wasn't being told, we want you to be this monster, we want you to be this beast kind of thing. We saw it with Braun Strowman when he first started. There was a lot of stuff like this where he was just grabbing people and letting go of them in these mad ways in which weren't going to protect the talent at all. But you feel like he's been asked to go out there and be this guy. And if you're getting caught up in the moment of trying to be a monster heel or smash people around, inevitably, if you're maybe not as comfortable as it, things like this are going to happen. I don't want to make too many excuses because, like I say, this has happened quite a few times now. But you'd think there would have been somebody intervened by now. So I feel like it must be coming from somewhere, and maybe it highlights that perhaps she's not comfortable or not like safe enough to do that style. And if they continue to force her in that way, I mean, what you're supposed to do? It's like, which comes at a weird time as well, because she has just been criticising the likes of Ronda Rousey for hating Alexa Bliss and stuff, which is not ideal, really.
Clery, what do you think?
I think there's a bit of deductive reasoning you can take from this. In certainly, it's quite a tight-knit group. We're always led to believe with the women's divisions. Why, like, take Natalya, for example, she gets a lot of opportunities because of how well respected she is amongst her peers. I think if Nia was as unsafe as I think a lot of people like to make out she is and like to sort of joke that she is, I don't think she would continually get the opportunities. Like we've seen, save for her initial push where they really wanted to make her look dominant, look strong, look like a major part of that division. WWE aren't obsessed with this idea of making Nia Jax like the focal point of the whole thing. They've got enough stars there. It's not that they're trying to force her into any title pictures or any equations or anything like that. So I think the fact that she keeps getting these opportunities probably tells you that everybody is comfortable working with her, and everybody's comfortable working with her because despite these freak things that happen, people do regard her as safe.
A couple of questions I want to sort of merge into one here. Thank you so much for your donations. It makes it easy to spot some of the questions as well. Ethan Wendelken, a regular contributor. Ethan says, Rollins or Drew, who's going to win in your opinion? I'm going to combine that with Toy Pikachu the Octolings question, which is
Mr. and Mrs. the Octoling.
I want to combine that with, Toy Pikachu the Octolings question, which is what is the next feud you want to see after Drew is done with Seth? Cleary, we assume Drew is going to retain against Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank, but it's not a done deal, is it?
Well, this is the thing. I thought Seth was a pretty weird pick for this because he lost his feud to Kevin Owens. And you would have thought that if you're trying to sort of logically pick out a number one contender, you'd want somebody who was coming out of WrestleMania with a bit of momentum. So I'm going to combine both of my answers here. I actually thought that it should have been Aleister Black next in line for Drew, whether or not you see that as face versus face or whatever. I think it's an interesting matchup. We've certainly not seen on the main roster. I think Seth has to lose this because you can't have him lose at WrestleMania then come out and dethrone the champion. But I guess you don't really know where you're going to go with him after that. I'm sure Nicholas will have a couple of ideas for how best to use Seth Rollins, but I would personally have Aleister Black. But my instinct is they're doing a lot of the groundwork on Raw at the minute to try and maybe make it Andrade.
I want to mention your thoughts on the future for Seth Rollins in a second, Nicholas, but I also want to combine it with something that I saw Gareth speculating over the weekend, which is the return of Jinder Mahal against Drew McIntyre. Thoughts?
Well, I tell you what, I was doing a list with Jinder on the other day, and one, just remembered that he was even in existence, which was nice. Two, do you know, is it just me? Or I think I kind of liked heel Jinder, you know. I'm not saying he was like, yes, as a, you know, I know his overall performance in the ring wasn't good, but he was hated and he got the worst out of fans and other people and the best out of the baby faces. And genuinely, like, everyone was buzzing when Styles beat him for the belt. It worked because for 6 months, yes, they made him do the same thing over and over again. But to me, he was like the JBL of the modern era. I wasn't going to ever say he was really good, but it definitely worked, whether you wanted it to work or not. Whether or not I'd want him to be put anywhere near anything that's happening here, just in case he ever beat Drew, God forbid that should happen. I mean, there's a story there, isn't there? Those two have got previous as partners, so maybe Vince would find that interesting. Jinder's definitely still in, well, he was the last time we saw. I assume his rehab's probably got him in even bigger shape these days. I don't think I'd want him anywhere near this particularly. I do like what Cleary said there. I thought it was a shame that they chucked Andrade in with Drew so soon because there's such a great story to tell there, with Andrade being the one who took his NXT championship and put him on the shelf back in the, well, put him on the shelf if you like. And that's a story I would definitely want to see. It's some matches you'd want to see because those two are great. I don't know, yeah, Jinder maybe not. Andrade, yes please. Aleister Black maybe is SummerSlam for me, I would say. That's a big enough match for something like that.
I think Aleister Black certainly seems a sort of leading contender for Money in the Bank. What do you reckon to that, Cleary?
I Aleister Black's not somebody who strikes me as needing a prop to get over as wrestling. Like, what? Imagine if he can't get it open, his entire shtick is, I'm going to pick a lock. I can't quite see Aleister Black with the prop. I can see him fighting like 10, 50 men to be crowned number one contender, but not if he's got to carry around a briefcase to do it. Weirdly, like, I can't get Apollo Crews out of my head. I don't know. Like, there's no logic to that whatsoever. There's no reason why they would ever put it on him, but I can just see him carrying it, like that big smile and the briefcase, looking like he's off to work in the underpants factory. I could see it. I really could.
We should mention in the comments, Undead FB Jew says, loving the Tash Cleary. And NFZ Ant says, what do you think of the Sasha Bailey storyline? We'll stay with you, Captain Tash.
What do I think of the Sasha Bailey story? Right now or over the past 18 years of my life? Like, I'm just waiting for... Actually, you know what? I'm going to rephrase that entirely. I worry that we will look back whenever both of these two retire, that this story, this feud, this friendship, this rivalry, everything peaked in that takeover match, and then WWE dragged it out continuously for years upon years, just trying to recapture a bit of that magic when both women could have had incredibly successful careers, like apart from each other. There's a WrestleMania match there, but we didn't get it at WrestleMania. Just the same as there was a SummerSlam match there, and we didn't get it at SummerSlam. And just the same as there was a WrestleMania match there the year before that, and the year before that. And just, it's weird. I don't think they trust these two to do anything other than work each other, but simultaneously don't trust each other enough to work each other. It's the most bizarre thing, because it's been going on and on and on and off for over 2 years now on the main roster. And if I asked you what was your favorite moment between the two, what would you say? That counselor?
Adam Nicholas,
the Iconics illegal.
Yeah, probably. You lived through their time in NXT, Nicholas, of course. It's so disappointing, this, but it feels like they might be heading in the right direction.
And that's where they'll get you. That's where they'll get you. Just when you thought you were out there, drag you back in. No, look, they're both very good. We know that. They both can work together. We know that. They both can work against each other. We know that. And yet, somehow, how have WWE managed to stop them from doing either? Now, that might sound like a stupid thing to say, because you think, well, they've been together for so long. They've done all this. But realistically, have they let them properly get into either of these two things, whether they're massively against each other or massively with each other? Other than the time when they won the tag team titles, they didn't even really let them do that. Like, they're on screen together all the time, but what do they actually do properly together of any real great significance? And the stuff like the matches they had in NXT, people will talk about them forever. So the legacy there is intact. But the problem is, people have seen them together for so long now that they're just, honestly, you could put them on there and have them never wrestle. And I don't think it would be different to what I feel about them now at the moment, because they don't get a chance to do anything of significance at all. Like, that stuff at WrestleMania was about as close maybe as we've had in a very long time. But even that, I don't feel like I watched it and went, oh, here we go. Like, this is it, because it's not.
It never is. It never is.
Yeah.
Interesting question coming in from That Ginger Guy. One, actually, I've seen quite a few people speculating around, or just generally speculating about the whole Money in the Bank ladder match concept. I'm going to combine this with a question I've seen elsewhere for you, Adam Clery. Question number one, should they combine the two Money in the Bank ladder matches? So should they be sort of simultaneous, considering they could be, I don't know, put on the two flagpoles at the top of Tying Tower? And That Ginger Guy asks, should the Money Up the Stairs matches be shot as... I've seen Money Up the Stairs and Money on the Roof.
Money on the Roof. Very good.
Anyway, should the Money Up the Stairs matches be shot as single segments or as scenes shown throughout the show?
If they do it as scenes throughout the show, that's going to be hokey as all hell and genuinely dreadful. They should categorically not do that. But what they should do is, and look, I'm glad you're both sitting down, because this is one of the best ideas I've ever had, right? So there's two Money in the Bank briefcases.
Hang on, how many eggs are involved?
Well, thematically, one, right? So there's 2 Money in the Bank briefcases, right? One is on the roof, up a big ladder on the roof. You know, you're going to start on the ground floor. You're going to brawl through the building. You can't use the lift. That's not allowed. And you've got to get there. You get up the top of the ladder, and that's where one briefcase is. But there is a second briefcase hidden somewhere in the building. It's literally Money in the Bank and the Money in the Bank Easter egg hunt at the exact same time. It could be anywhere. It could be on the ground floor. It could be in the middle of the building. It could be in the women's labs. You've got to find everywhere. So imagine somebody wins the briefcase at the top of the ladder on the top floor. Then everyone else is like, right, mad dash, scavenger hunt, and it would be incredible.
I really like the idea that I came up with, granted, because there's one extra spot I do believe left. There's going to be King Corbin versus Drew Gulak on SmackDown this week, and then there's one final spot in the men's thing, and people are speculating, you know, Kevin Owens or who knows who's going to be put in there. I'd like it in a sort of callback to last year for it to just be left open, and if you're going to go to the roof of Titan Tower, one would suspect you'd just use the lift rather than going up all the floors. But unfortunately, they're out of order because they've been hacked.
Dun, dun, dun.
What do you think of that, Adam Nicholas?
I think I like that. And I think it'd be funny if someone went to get in and got so far up and then it stopped. And that was the beginning of like all these shenanigans that were happening on the different floors as the hacker got involved. Tell you what would be even funnier, Adam Wilbourn, is that how would you get to the top of a tower faster than a lift? Well, let me tell you, you'd get a helicopter. That's what you do.
Michael Owen.
Can you imagine if, as they were getting to the top of that, I don't know how they would shoot it, but they're getting to the top of Titan Towers, and someone, Brock Lesnar, bored. He's bored, and he just goes, "Hey, helicopter city, bitch!" and just gets off a chopper and gets onto the roof, grabs a briefcase, just like, why wouldn't you get a chopper?
Yeah, lads, if we thought Brock Party made a lot of money, wait till we see the helicopter. I should have said as well, by the way, the best part about this, my plan of having the scavenger hunt as the second briefcase, right, is that nobody finds it. The turn Titan Towers inside out. Nobody can find it. There's little sketches on Raw and SmackDown for weeks afterwards. People go back to have a look. Is it under this table? Is it there? R-Truth walks in on someone in the bog. Like, there's loads of funny stuff, right? And then, do you know where it is? Do you know where the second briefcase was?
Is it inside the first? Yes.
It was inside the first briefcase. So when the first person goes to cash in, it falls out, and the other person, he gets the belt taken off and gets the briefcase straight back. And it's so easy to write WWE.
It's what you keep saying, Adam Clery. Don't forget, if you want any questions asked, still a few more minutes left. Stick them in the comments and we'll try and get as many done as we can. Adam Clery, as the man behind NXT Ups and Downs on Thursdays, of course, I thought I'd ask you the next NXT question we've got from Victoria Floyd, who says, if Charlotte loses the title, who would you think they will choose to be the victor? I wanted Bianca Belair, but they've already crushed my dream. I mean, you're spoiled for choice down in NXT.
I think it's got to go back to Rhea Ripley. I think the Charlotte thing feels like a really clever diversion to kind of... The thing about NXT is there's always been a queue of people who you expect to sort of be at the very top, and the way it works, you've got to then cycle them up to the main roster as a result. I think if you want to bring Charlotte in for this WrestleMania match, and you want to bring her in for this post-WrestleMania season to, drive viewers down there and to get something a bit different, I think it only works if it's in itself is a cycle. I think eventually, I think she should go through pretty much the whole division, give everybody these brilliant matches, trying to get their hands on the belt. But I think, again, it should be Rhea Ripley who's the first person to then knock her off, because her whole storyline has been overcoming these odds that you don't think she was physically capable of doing. You didn't think anyone was capable of doing. Shayna never looked like she'd be able to be defeated in NXT. Then Rhea Ripley, she found a way to do that. So I think you put Charlotte in as this far more experienced veteran who, she hasn't got any strength or power or athleticism or anything technically over Rhea Ripley. She just knows wrestling better. Like Rhea Ripley even said in the thing afterwards, she clearly underestimated her. So then you go back through that cycle. You have Ripley be the one to beat her. Then it's a challenge for everybody else. Not unlike the way they do it in Dragon Ball Z, where someone gets super powerful and everyone else has to catch them up. He knows what I'm talking about. So you get Ripley. She's the one who finally comes up to Charlotte's level. Charlotte then goes back to the main roster. Then it's up to everybody else to get back onto Rhea Ripley's level, and that starts the cycle all over again. And I do think someone like Bianca Belair, they should be in the pecking order somewhere along from that. Whether or not she's full-time part of the main roster now, we don't really know. Io's a great candidate for it. You would imagine they'll go on Candice at some point, really, because she's so popular and she's so so visible. There is an embarrassment of riches. Like people getting signed like Shotzi Blackheart, etc. 2 or 3 years ago in picture. Now, they get the odd TV match. They're not even part of these ladder matches. So I don't know. I think there's a million candidates for it down there, but I think you've got to start with Ripley again.
It's over 9,000. That's the only thing I know about it. But let's stick with our specialist subjects. Adam Nicholas, Ember Avenger asks, how does Edge come back?
How does Edge come? He's already come back, mate. You're not watching.
Yes.
Royal Rumble happened. How does Edge come back? Well, I guess at this point, Edge is... Timing's weird, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people just disappeared, and Edge is one of those cases where I bet he feels kind of funny about having a deal at the moment. I haven't watched a bunch of his friends, particularly Hawkins and Ryder, disappear. I don't really know where would I like to see him having a go. He mentioned a bunch. I don't know if you saw the podcast he did with Corey Graves. He mentioned literally everybody who exists, basically, on who he'd like to see and have matches with. I'd love to get... It wouldn't work at the moment because of the situation, but Edge and Roman Reigns is something that I am very, very interested in, because I think Edge can tell the story really well. Roman's probably the best worker they have, like, in the company. Once, obviously, all of this is gone and he's fit and healthy and stuff. I mean, that's just a plethora of people. Like the younger talent, he said he'd like to work Aleister Black. He said he'd like to work Drew. He said he'd like to work Baron Corbin, which I would be up for. Two like men who are opportunistic working against each other. Although saying that, I know everybody except for about 50% of me hated that Randy Orton Edge match. So imagine getting that again with somebody else. I can't imagine everybody would be too happy about that. Would you want to see him do a tag run again? Is there stuff like that in contention? I don't know. I think if I had to pick one, though, top of my list. Oh, I don't know, because what if you work some people from NXT? I mean, the possibilities are endless. Dream scenario maybe would be to chuck Edge a bit, chuck him heel again, do some heel stuff, even though it wouldn't really work, but chuck him a heel. Actually, Johnny Gargano is a heel at the minute, so have him go have a match with Johnny Gargano. That'd be great. Tick some off some boxes for people. Or a match with Sami Zayn. 2 Canadians having to go at it. That'd be great.
One piece of forward planning I've just seen in the comments comes from the real Bogger. That's Bogger, who says, "Do you think Adam Cole, which is apt considering this is an Adam trifecta right here today? Do you think Adam Cole could win the 2021 Royal Rumble and challenge Drew at Mania 37? The story writes itself with the history the two have." Clery, your thoughts?
I think he could. You would have to say, well, this is the thing. The current champion in NXT always ends up being talked about as a viable contender for the Royal Rumble that year. And it never, ever, 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 ever happens. I think in order for that to work, you're going to have to call up the entire Undisputed Era around probably Survivor Series sometime, which if you actually check your calendars and our little palm books, it's not that far away. So you'd be talking about splitting up the Undisputed Era in the next couple of months, getting Adam Cole onto the main roster. I mean, they say, what a great debut it would be for an NXT star to go straight into the Rumble and win the thing. And they wouldn't even do that with Shayna this year. Like, probably the best contender they've ever had for somebody to do that. It seems like an obvious creative decision for fans. I think they love that idea because somebody is so hot in their minds, whether at the top of NXT. But WWE have still shown that, like, you're not a big deal to them while you're in NXT. You're not quite as big a deal as everybody else thinks you are. You still got to kind of prove something, I guess, to get there. Like they made Shayna go through the Elimination Chamber and all that before they did, etc. So, look, I think Adam Cole versus Drew McIntyre is a fantastic WrestleMania main event. I don't think it's a particularly WWE WrestleMania main event.
Thank you so much for all your donations in the comments section. Popeye Ginger 68 says, thanks for all the hard work you all are doing, keeping me sane at work. Much appreciated. And Shad Turpin says, thank you for the daily content, daily distractions. You're more than welcome. Not to bring the mood down here, Adam Nicholas.
Good.
We are speculating regarding WrestleMania 37, and Lyndon Stewart on Twitter has asked, do you think WWE has or should start planning alternative Mania plans for next year? The show shows crowd size will be, to quote Andy Murray, pushing it already. And CA's Gov has said he's already going to be very strict about gatherings for the foreseeable future. Look, we don't know how long this lockdown or the I should say more the social distancing measures are going to be in effect. So do you think it's going to affect WrestleMania even next year?
I think it would be a foolish person who would bet against it, purely because at this point we don't know where things stand, like long term. I guarantee you that they've been having a look already to see what the alternatives could be, well ahead of time. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if someone like Vince was already, like a la Dana White, trying to think of some way to get around the laws and find his own private island or find something so he could put WrestleMania on, because I guarantee that is a kind of move I could see McMahon making, because well, he's just come into a bit of cash, hasn't he, after swinging the axe on so many people. But I mean, I'd like to hope not. Fingers crossed we'll get WrestleMania back next year. Obviously, there's more important things out there at the moment that we need to happen. But imagine WrestleMania on a weird little island. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I fully can imagine that, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt Rains in the comments. Thank you for your donation, Matt.
Hello, Matt.
Says,
the medium dog.
Matt says, afternoon, lads. Clery, is it okay that I'm still listening to this from my car?
I knew it was going to be a radio question.
Absolutely. If you are what's the term? If you're a vital worker, if you're doing the Lord's work out there, you can listen to it wherever the hell you want. However, if you're some middle-aged woman who just wants a haircut and literally will not believe what they're being told, even when the thing they're being told is in their lungs, then no, please go home and listen to all the great What Culture podcasts from the safety of your sofa.
Coach Marv also listening from his car. I should inform you, Cleary, that Matt Rains is currently feuding with Michael Hamflett and has written, if you want, once I wrap up my feud with Walter, we can start a programme.
Nah, I don't need to work him.
Cleary, we've spoken about the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. On the women's side of things, there's arguably more exciting prospects. There's obviously Shayna, there's Asuka, there's even some people going to bat for Dana Brooke, who, of course, defeated Naomi on SmackDown this week, or end of last week.
It should have been Liv Morgan. Now, look, I'm not going to get into all the very many different reasons about how they've dropped the ball on this and how they will continue to drop the ball on this, but it should have been Liv Morgan. I think they brought her back, they did all this hype, all this thing, all this everything, and it just disintegrated pretty much straight away with the Lana feud. And then they had to beat Lana in a really underwhelming match and try to say that was it. She now moves on and Liv Morgan's a force to be reckoned with. And then they've gone and got put this in the thing with Ruby Riott and done the exact same thing again, where Liv Morgan's picked up the win and they're like, oh, it's great now. She could move on from all of that. But I just think she's destined to go back this little cycle of just obscurity, try and do a little thing with her, etc., etc. But that out of the way,
there's still a space for it to. There's still one space, I do believe, left. So
there is, but I can't see them doing it. They've already done the qualifying match with her, I think, haven't they? Where she lost that, and then she's done the thing with Ruby Riott now, and then I don't know. Asuka for me, I think it should be Asuka. She's just the most entertaining thing on that entire. She completely sold me on WrestleMania. I thought this will not work at all. This empty arena patter will be dreadful. And as I sat there, Kabuki Warriors were the first match on. I was, this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. I can hear Asuka talking in very aggressive Japanese throughout the whole match. She's, I think she's talented enough that whatever they give her to work with. I was saying before, I can't see Aleister Black with a prop. I can absolutely see Asuka with a prop. I can see the women's Money in the Bank briefcase being one of the funniest and most entertaining things on that entire show. So Asuka for me, Jeff.
And in terms of, I really like Asuka as a pick. In terms of a storyline, it obviously in your head it works a lot better with the crowd to have the reaction. But can you imagine if, we would assume that Becky is not defending her title at Money in the Bank, what with Shayna and Asuka and no real obvious contenders unless you chuck Nia Jax. Oh no, Nia Jax in the ladder match, of course. So we'd assume that's not happening. So going forward, imagine if they set up a rematch for Shayna Baszler against Becky Lynch, and as she's been doing regularly on Monday Night Raw, she, broke Becky Lynch's arm and snatched the title away from her, only to have Asuka immediately cash in on her. There's this wonderful cyclical storyline there. Mike Namias in the comments says, how much longer can stars of the 90s go? Can WWE still create icons that will still be relevant in 20 years? Interesting that, Adam Nicholas, because we saw, I was going to say MJF, not quite. MVP are on this week's Monday Night Raw.
Slightly different.
And I was talking to Hamflett about it when we were reviewing Monday Night Raw, and he wasn't the biggest fan.
So what are you meaning? Can we get rid of the current ones, or are we saying you want
I think it's a two-parter. I think it's how long are they going to cling to the nostalgia of the 90s
but forever. That's question one.
And yeah, do they still have the ability to create stars?
I think they can. I absolutely think the ability is there. I'm not saying it's theirs. I'm saying that is something they could do. Making stars is something that they could do. They have everything at their disposal to do that. Whether or not they choose to do that is a completely other thing entirely. And unless by some great miracle, their guy and the fans guy, although the fans guy isn't really in existence at the moment, because where are the fans? We're all stuck at home. But if their guy and the fans guy ever matches up, a la someone like Stone Cold, although look at that, another throwback to the 90s, then maybe they will. But they seem very hesitant, don't they? Because these days the brand is the draw, not the stars, and they're very careful not to give anybody too much power outside of their control. I'd like to see them make another star. I mean, I think ever since I watched Roman Reigns beat The Undertaker and put his arms up and all in fireworks go off, he is the star for me. And I know a lot of people might not like that, but he is, like, there's no denying it. When he comes out now, I feel like he's a star. Everything about that man is a star. He's got a fantastic story now, whether it's through unfortunate real life circumstances. He's got everything he needs. That's as close as you're going to get in this day and age, in my opinion. And I don't even think that's like John Cena kind of star power either. I think it's real, genuine, like not forced so much star power, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. They seem hesitant, don't they? They don't really want to push people in that direction.
Mad that they've decided to ban the use of his name as well.
Yeah, odd. But then again, I guess that's a sign to me. Well, I know a lot of people took negatives for that. They obviously want to try and build up some star power there, maybe, and like he disappears completely, no mentions, nothing. How excited will he be when he finally returns, or is it a punishment? We don't know, I guess.
Only Kinda Gamers says, Adam, when are you going to make an "It's So Easy to Book WWE" shirt? I think this could be a good sale on those. And I'm going to combine that, Cleary, with a question, again, from Toy Pikachu the Octoling. Thanks again for your donation. Saying, do you think Walter could win the WWE Championship? I really think he can. It's not a good sign considering Survivor Series, but if they transition him out of NXT, what do you think his chances are on the main roster, Cleary?
Well, first of all, I will say that you don't make the T-shirts come to you. So if anybody out there has a really good design for It's So Easy to Book WWE with this face on it, I will consider giving them a cut of the millions.
Ooh, instant regret.
However, the thing is, I don't think Walter could be a WWE champion because for the following reasons. He's from an unfavorable, relatively unknown to most Americans country. There's not really a way you can market him as generic foreign bad. He's not really got like the classic kind of mic skills. He's not the WWE superstar in the classic kind of mold. But then again, they did make it work with Jinder. So I don't know. Maybe Vince does every so often like to go, how do we build heat for a WWE champion? Yes, they don't speak English. So I think Walter coming out, doing the Imperium gimmick, them all standing there with those clearly very un-American names and those un-American attitudes and that un-American patter. It would be out there. He's not an obvious choice by any stretch of the imagination. There is not a clear path from where he is now to WWE champion. And I think if you want to have some kind of grand slam in your head of being the WWE UK champion and the WWE champion, it's probably not going to be anybody who ever gets that in my mind. But if anybody could do it, maybe Walter.
Franklin Goodwin in the comments says, Adam, should Titus Worldwide reform? And my answer to that
which Adam's that for?
Sorry?
Which Adam do you think that's for?
I think that's for all of us, but I think I'll speak for all of us because we're all in agreement here. Absolutely. They are all clearly back on the right trajectory. You've got a WrestleMania host. You've got a guy who's in the Money in the Bank ladder match. You've got a girl who's in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And you've got a guy who's already one win in to the NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament. Give them all the gold. Right, we'll wrap up here. Any final questions, stick them in the comments and I'll try and get to them. But Nicholas, good question from Zachary Lumpkin on Twitter, who says, do you think that WWE will pull a WWE move and abandon all storylines they are building right now once the restrictions are lifted?
Oh, absolutely not. If anything, if there was ever a time they were going to stick to something, It's right now. They'll undoubtedly, like, listen, I know they've done a lot of weird stuff and they've kind of had to try and think on the fly with all of this, but let's be fair to them. This money on the roof, money up the stairs, money in the bank box, however you want to call it, it's coming at a really weird time, but that's probably the best idea they've come up with in like forever, like in a long, long time. Genuinely, I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But like, in terms of the storylines they've got going on at the minute, if they do end up getting that little clause into stuff, they'll put themselves into a corner, I feel, with booking. Like, that they'll limit it only to what is going on at the moment. And then when them crowds come back, if anything, they will stick to those stories that they come up with so fervently that we won't get a single budge to the point where it'll be damaging to the product and it won't even matter because we'll still all be watching anyway.
I just miss Pops. I think that's what it is. I just miss Pops. We watched a weird segment involving Mae Young and Lay Cool just yesterday. And even that made Michael Cole pop his little tits off. Interesting question from David Galusi here for you, Clery, around Drake Maverick. A lot of speculation around his future. Obviously, officially, he's been released by WWE, but he's still competing in that NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament. It's caused some people to speculate whether or not him leaving is a work. As much as I have a track record with this sort of thing, I don't feel it's the place to be saying that when it seems so serious when you compare it to, Moxley or Hardy or whatever. David Galusi says, do you think there's a possibility that thanks to the fan support, Drake Maverick will make it through the Cruiserweight tournament? He did describe it as his last shot, and he posted a video on Twitter last night really saying he was going to give it his all, Clery.
It's an immensely uncomfortable question to ask this because while it would be a great storyline of this guy, salvaging things at the last minute, this isn't like real sports where he's been let go from the league and he needs a championship ring in order to renew his contract. Like, they have let a lot of people go in the midst of all this, people who have genuinely lost their jobs and may, genuinely find it difficult to get through this period. And if they've decided to use that genuine situation in order to engender sympathy for one particular performer, I don't even think WWE are that stupid. And if they were, Drake Maverick certainly is. Because can you imagine being in that profession and being the guy who got fake fired in amidst all the real firings in order just to get a little bit of a push? It's just, I know we like to find these like little narrative threads and these little clues, and we like to think we're ahead of the game slightly. But as we've seen with some people, WWE consider themselves in a position to use these people for 90 days, even after they've got rid of them. They know a lot of them aren't in a position to go elsewhere. They can't find other work. A lot of them, in Drake Maverick's case, can't even particularly leave the country. Like, he can't even come back home and do things like that. He is because they've asked him to, and he hasn't really got an option in it. And I hope he does really well, and he shows people, what they're letting go, what they're going to be missing out on. But if it turns out that they were actually doing that as part of a worked story, that's beyond the pale, in my opinion.
Before I move on to the final question here, Nicholas, awful news regarding Sarah Logan. Speculation she was going to return on last night's show. I've never heard her name used so much when she hasn't been on screen than last night. And then it's coming out that rather than rehiring her, WWE appear to just be trying to make her work her 90-day release period. Awful stuff yet again from WWE, if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can sit here and be surprised by any of it, to be honest. You just feel, the only thing you can really do is feel for the performers involved, I think, because someone like Sarah Logan was part of the Riot Squad, obviously, and them three, while everybody might have thought there was nothing to them when they first started, probably myself included, like, they ended up making something like out of nothing, pretty much. Those three formed something great, and then literally, like, as they were finding their feet as an act, as they really started to get into a rhythm, they all got split up. And then from that point on, obviously, we've had injuries, we've had people go out disappear, had makeovers that weren't really makeovers. Sarah Logan has never faltered. She stayed fresh. She let them film her wedding. She actually let them film her wedding and use that for content because she knew it would be interesting, given the whole Viking thing with her and her husband, like that, all this stuff. And ultimately, it's funny that, or not funny, but I guess if ever a company was going to make somebody work their 90 days and force them to give them a little tease of what they could have if they still work there, and then take it all away. I mean, it's WWE, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's the implication as well that I found of, all right, you don't have to work it if you don't want to, but it'd be a shame for your husband if that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
I have to film more carpool karaoke or whatever the bloody hell last night was on Monday Night Raw.
What you're essentially saying is that WWE are Dennis Reynolds from It's Always Sunny, and they're like standing with Sarah Logan saying like, I'm not saying anything's going to happen, but you know.
Have you all seen the thing that's come out of the Orange County Board of Commissioners meeting today?
I glanced at this. Just fill us in, Clery.
This is during the public comment section of the Orange County Board of Thingy meeting, which is sort of like the local government sort of doing public announcements about everything that's going on. They've said they've been contacted by a WWE employee just named John, who's said that staff and performers are being forced to work TV tapings despite the stay-at-home orders, and they're unable to speak out and feel that they will be fired if they approach their higher-ups.
Wow.
John.
So that's John there, who obviously for the sake of anonymity we'll just say is John M. No, sorry, that's really obvious. Let's say Jay Morrison. They obviously don't feel that they can really say anything.
Final question here.
Hey, hang on. You're kind of ruling out here that it wasn't John Cena and they just couldn't see him.
That's a better joke. That's annoyingly the much better joke.
Final question today, then. I'm going to reword what Kevin Nails has put in the comments here. Kevin Nails wants to know who you think. I'll ask this to both of you. Nicholas, you can start. Who will be the first person to appear when the crowds are back? Kevin suggests any of the McMahons or Triple H.
Literally, one of the McMahons to take the pop. Shane, probably, with his best in the world trophy. Just for good measure. No, I don't know. Whoever, honestly, I don't care. I don't care as long as they're going to get the fans back and the fans get to enjoy wrestling live again. I know it's going to be weird. This is like us. Like, it must be hard for fans who want to just go and can still have the option to go and see it. Because much like Witherspoon's over here, gentlemen, we all know they've been absolutely atrocious in all of this. And we won't be frequenting probably a Witherspoon's very much ever again because of all that, give or take, depending on how thirsty you are. This is like the WWE universe. They want the product back, but they've got this negative big dark cloud hanging over the top of it that we're just going to forget all about that because you're going to be so excited to go back and see.
Cleary?
Becky Lynch.
I'm going to give a nod to Michael Hamflet here. I think as much as I'd love it to be... No,
he's busy, man.
As much as I'd like it to be an Edge or even someone like a John Cena, just so everyone can get involved and sing. Maybe The Rock, Stone Cold, whoever. I do like Hamflet's idea of everyone is so eager to just really get involved for the first person to come out, and rather than it being Vince McMahon or Triple H or Steph or whoever, or even Shane. I really like Hamflet's idea of it being King Corbin, just to get absolutely nuclear heat, just slowly walking out. Yeah. I think it could be fantastic. Right, guys, we could chat about this forever, but we are going to do this on a regular basis. Every single day at 4 p.m. we're going to be doing live podcasts here on YouTube. Tomorrow it's going to be myself and the Dadley Boys previewing the Wednesday night war between AEW and NXT, of course. But if you want to send us more questions, perhaps for the news tomorrow morning, at WhatCultureWWE on Twitter, and you can follow us, all three of us, on Twitter. In fact, you can follow Adam Clery at
Adam Clery, Clery.
You can follow Adam Nicholas at
It's Adam Nicholas.
You can follow our lovely editor Phil at Phil My Chambers. You can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. And as I said earlier, make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling for daily wrestling podcasts, including the one from yesterday with myself and the Dadley Boys predicting mad spots for, what was it? Money on the stairs, money on the roof, money up the stairs, whatever
money
it's
up
called.
The stairs.
Money in the loft.
Money in the loft. Right, this has been WWE Questions You Most Want Answered. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back same time next week. But for now, from myself, from Adam Clery, and from Adam Nicholas, thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.